Welcome to the Land to Lots podcast, powered by Launch Development Finance Advisors. And now your host, Carter Froelich.
Welcome everyone to the Land to Lots podcast. My name is Carter Froelich, and I'm very excited to introduce to the Land to Lots podcast, Carl Pischke, a principal with RC Elko Real Estate Consulting, and Pam Giss, a principal with Launch Development Finance Advisors. Today's topic is the top selling master plan communities, of which RC Elko prepares a top selling master plan community survey twice a year. And additionally, we're going to be drilling down into these top selling master plan communities to understand how these top selling communities are financing their infrastructure. So before we get into the questions, Carl, why don't you introduce yourself and RC Elko? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, thank you, Carter, and thank you for having me on the podcast. As you mentioned, I'm a principal at RC Elko Real Estate Consulting. I sit here in our Orlando, Florida office. However, we work nationwide, and so we have offices located in Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Austin, Texas, and Denver, Colorado. Our firm was founded in 1967 by Robert Charles Lesser, and so some listeners may even still recognize the name Robert Charles Lesser and Company, even though we've been going by the RC Elko moniker for some time now. As a firm, we have three service areas or practice groups, which are real estate economics, management consulting, and advisory services for institutional investors. I've been a part of our real estate economics group for about 7, almost 8 years now. And our reason for being, so to say, is to provide our clients with trusted and unbiased third-party recommendations regarding things like highest and best use, product definition, market positioning, pricing, and absorption potential. And so we do that work for all of the real estate food groups, from apartments and single-family rental communities to urban mixed-use developments to what we're here to talk about today, which is master plan communities. Since I've joined RC Elko back in 2015, I've had the opportunity to work with and study some of the biggest and best master plan communities in the country. And a lot of that stems from my involvement in our top selling master plan communities report that you mentioned, which is a biannual initiative I've led for the last 5 years. So always a good time to be able to get together and talk about MPCs.
Yep, great. And we're so glad to have you, Carl. And just to date myself a little bit, I remember your firm is Robert Charles Lesser. So unfortunately, I've been around for a long time. Yeah, and it's still going. Pam, tell us a little bit about yourself and Launch.
Thank you. My name is Pam Giss, and I joined Launch Development Finance Advisors in 2018, although we worked together for a couple of years with another group. And I've been managing the Southwest office, which is Arizona, Idaho, Utah, New Mexico, although we're active in other states as well, including California and Texas and Nevada, and a little bit in Florida. So we're focused on helping developers in any way we can finance public infrastructure and reduce costs and risk in projects. And so it goes beyond district finance, but I would say that the majority of our focus has been district finance. I'm a licensed Missouri attorney, not practicing here in the state of Arizona. I have to say that loudly. And have focused on real estate development and public finance, for the majority of my career. So it's exciting to be here. I mean, this is such an exciting time in real estate, coming off this big roll and kind of, heading into a little flatter period. But yeah, I'm grateful to be here, and I'm anxious to hear what Carl has to say as well. So thank you.
Great. Well, thanks, Pam. Carl, let me start by asking, RC Elko has been doing the top selling master plan community list for as long as I can remember, which, as I indicated previously, goes back a number of years. How and why did RC Elko get into providing this service? I'm just curious about the backstory.
Yeah, well, RC Elko actually began producing the top-selling master plan community report back in the mid-90s. So this is an initiative that's existed at our firm for nearly 3 decades. And for a company that's been around for about 55 years, that makes our MPC report a pretty significant component of our legacy as a real estate advisory firm. Of course, when the initiative started, it was something we actually published in print in copies of our advisory newsletter. And of course, now we publish directly to our website and email list with advisory content that comes out monthly or even bi-monthly. But even so, the top-selling MPC report remains one of the biggest initiatives that we undertake as thought leaders in the real estate industry. So the report itself is published biannually, including our year-end report that most people are familiar with that comes out in early January. That version of the report summarizes the performance of master plans throughout the entirety of the prior year and includes our latest thinking on the forecast for the following year. And I find that report tends to get the most attention from readers. However, for many years now, we've also been publishing a top-selling master plan update report, which is the one that goes out in early July, and that we'll be mentioning in more detail today as it relates to our mid-year 2022 update. That report summarizes the first half of the year and provides an update on what we're thinking is likely to occur for the balance of the year. But back to your original question, really our reasons for providing this service are twofold. The first is that it provides us with great information on the performance of master plan communities. And so in some ways it acts as a barometer for what's going on in the broader for sale residential industry. Knowing how communities are selling in a given time frame, how that compares to previous years, where those sales are concentrated in terms of geographic location. It's all very important information for anyone who's involved in real estate to be aware of. And of course, it's just a fun exercise being able to rank performance of communities and create this very expansive list. But the second reason that we do it, I think, is probably more important in many ways, which is that it really gives us an opportunity multiple times a year to connect with master plan communities and MPC developers across the country. So we get a chance to understand the trends that are impacting their business. We get to understand their expectations for the coming year, to hear about the challenges and the triumphs that they've experienced, and perhaps even more critically, understand more about the wants and the needs of their buyers. And so all of that insight into the pulse of master plan community development is really what helps to inform all of our consulting work. And it gives us what we need to provide our clients the best and most current information and guidance.
Great. And I can't wait to get into some of the insight that you have as a result of putting together the study. And so we're going to get into that in just a couple of minutes. Pam, how did you and Carl get together and what was the idea behind drilling down on the master plans and how they were financing their public infrastructure?
Well, I mean, there's quite a bit of overlap of interest with RCLCO, isn't there? I mean, we see these successful projects several times a year, and we've worked on many of them. So we started thinking about what projects, the projects that we aren't working on, and are they using the same tools that our clients are using? What are they doing? It's important for us to be thought leaders and be out in front. And so we want to know what the most other successful projects in the country are doing. And in fact, we found in most cases that they're doing much of what we're doing. We thought it'd be interesting to get a little more information on how much these projects are pulling out per door, what they're netting in terms of net construction proceeds, what their clients, what the end users are paying annually, both in terms of property taxes and in district imposed taxes. So we reached out to Carl and Greg and we said, would you mind if we looked at this? Would you mind if we took your list and delved a little deeper? And thus the financing mechanism was born.
Great, thanks. And looking forward to kind of getting into the detail of what you found. Carl, what are you seeing in terms of what the top master plan communities are doing? And what are the other MPCs that aren't making the list? What are they not doing? Is this just strictly a function of location, market, amenities, home price? What is it that the successful master plan communities are doing?
Well, I think it's a combination of all of the above. But first of all, it's probably important in understanding what the best communities are doing well to first describe what it is we mean when we talk about master plan communities specifically, because the definition really does have a difference between master plan communities and uh, what might be a more run-of-the-mill builder subdivision, for instance. So to be included in our ranking and in our top selling MPC report, communities have to have a number of different features, including being developed from a comprehensive plan by a master developer. They tend to incorporate a variety of housing types and sizes and prices. They have shared common space, amenities, and really a vital public realm. So the best examples of master plans are developed with a strong vision and a comprehensive plan that guides the development and unifies the community through things like distinctive signage, wayfinding, entry features, landscaping, and even architectural or design standards. And then beyond that built environment, master plan communities, as we define them, also differentiate themselves from suburban subdivisions in the way that they provide for interaction among neighbors. So they tend to foster an environment within which multiple generations can live better in terms of both housing and the community environment. Many offer educational opportunities, schools, neighborhood shopping and services, and some even offer employment centers that complement the residential neighborhood. And so, although rooted in that fairly expansive vision, these MPCs have flexible master plans, they're environmentally sensitive and market responsive, and they tend to nurture the lifestyles of their residents. So in general, that would be what we consider to be the definition of a master plan community. And based on that, we're not necessarily looking at communities that are simply kind of including the sale of multiple separate subdivisions or communities that are unified only through marketing efforts rather than a preconceived community vision.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in terms of what sets those MPCs specifically apart from other communities and even other smaller MPCs, I think that's an even bigger question to unpack. So you mentioned it being a function of everything from location and market to amenity and lifestyle offering to price points and affordability. And that is true that all of those are components. I mean, in terms of location, it's no surprise, right, that some of the top selling MPCs are located in Florida and Texas, which have been the leaders in domestic migration over the last several years. I mean, look no further than the top two communities, the Villages in Central Florida or Lakewood Ranch in the Sarasota, Tampa area, to see that location plays a role. But there is a lot more to it than just that, and I think one of the biggest components that we like to talk to or talk about at Froelich is product segmentation. And so, in analyses that we've run in the past, top selling MPCs on average will have a minimum of at least 10 unique builder lines, and those will span an array of price points. And so that diversity of both product and price allows MPCs to hit multiple market niches, from first-time home buyers to downsizing empty nesters and move-up family buyers, et cetera. And being able to attract that diversity of market audience allows you to reach a scale that many smaller communities cannot, and that gives these MPCs an opportunity to provide a lot in the way of lifestyle and amenity offerings that most communities just can't compete with.
And thanks for that, Carl. That was a really detailed and thorough explanation of MPCs and how you look at them and quantify the results and actually allow them to be on your survey. Since I can remember, the Villages has been the top selling master plan community, and this goes back a number of years. And
at least a decade, right?
Yeah, and they continue to be heads and tails, higher than the second MPC on the list. What are they doing or continually doing to be on top? I mean, because they're located in the middle of Florida, right? And but they just keep on doing the top sales of all the MPCs and have for decades, as you had said.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly an open question as to whether they will, in the near term, ever see a second place finish or third place finish. The amount of land that the villages has and the amount of development work that they have underway. I've heard some estimates from folks in the industry that they may have at least another 10 to 15 years of operating within that top selling AAC bubble. And so, this is a really unique master plan community in that it's operating almost as its own city or metropolitan area. It spans 3 different counties, has tens of thousands of additional units planned in the near term. And by the way, if being known as the retirement capital of the world wasn't enough, as I understand, they've recently released information about their plans for Middleton, which will essentially be its own MPC within an MPC. Parts of that will be non-age restricted. And so they're now beginning to cater to the need for housing for all of those that live and work within the village's area, not just the retiree segment. And so, this is a portion of the community that will have multiple schools, new golf, new amenities, commercial components. And so there remains, I think, a lot of staying power with the villages as one of the top selling communities in the country.
Yeah. And I think it's important the way I understand Middleton, it's really a community that is focused on providing reasonable, affordable housing for those that work within the villages. Is that a correct statement, or is that a little bit of an overstatement?
No, I think that's absolutely correct. I mean, there are tens of thousands of employees within the villages area. This is an economic engine that's been created as a result of this community, and providing for the housing for those folks and those families, I think is a huge market that the village is likely to have a lot of success in attracting.
Yeah.
In addition to sustaining the success that they've obviously had as an active adult community.
Well, and we had or I had the great privilege of interviewing Mark Morrissey and Ivy Chandler of the villages. And the thing that came across when talking with Mark is just the absolute love they have for the villages. And this is a family mission, I mean, obviously Mark inherited it from his father, but just the thought and the care and the absolute focus on providing a lifestyle for their residents, was so evident when I was talking with both Mark and Ivy. And for our readers and listeners that may want to take a look at that interview, I encourage you to go back to the launch website, go into the news section of the website, and look at the February 26th, 2021 issue of the launch report, and you can see the interview we had with Mark and Ivy. So thanks for that, Carl. Pam, how are the top selling master plans financing their infrastructure? Are there some trends that you're seeing as you dive into the numbers?
Well, I think one of the most interesting things, I mean, it depends on the state. So Florida and Texas really dominate. They dominate the top 50 selling master plan communities, and they really dominate the financing sector as well. So starting with Florida, where developers are really relying on CDDs, community development districts. Over a 10-year period, districts in Florida have issued more than $43.8 billion in new money to finance infrastructure. And that's not refinancing, that's pure new money to finance public infrastructure. It's a huge number. If you look at Texas, which is also a powerhouse in this area, over an 11-year period, they've issued more than $10.2 billion in new money to finance roads, bridges, water, sewer, all these things. So it's really they're relying very heavily, these developers, on these districts to pay for a lot of this quite expensive infrastructure. Colorado, another one, we don't see them as much in Carl's report, but metro districts have issued about 7.4 billion over a 10-year period for infrastructure. Again, new money. And then you start to see some of the other states like Arizona, which has had a similar growth percentage, certainly recently, but certainly over the last 20 or 30 years, we've had a tremendous amount of growth in Arizona. But over a 20-year period, we've issued less than $1 billion in debt to pay for infrastructure. So I would say, in Arizona, you see more developers coming out of pocket, or at least that's what we've seen in the past. I think there's a lot of missed opportunities in states like Arizona. But having said that, if you look at Arizona, Idaho, Utah, where we haven't seen as much reliance on district finance in the past, I think they're starting to recognize the necessity of it. And I wouldn't even say the benefit of it. I think we're really beyond benefit, but I think they're starting to recognize that these districts are really integral to building these types of products.
Yeah, and as jurisdictions require bigger and bigger infrastructure sooner in the process, do you see the use of special districts changing anytime in the future?
Well, I think we're going to continue to see a lot more reliance on district finance, and if you look across the states where we're really active, we continually see developers trying to make these districts more user-friendly through legislation. And I mean, I can't think of a time where we didn't have a group going in front of Idaho or Arizona or of New Mexico, trying to work out some of the kinks to make it easier to do all this. And there's a fundamental understanding with developers that public infrastructure is necessary, and jurisdictions have really gotten out of this business. They've got too many competing interests. They're not in a position to come out of pocket and help growth. And so, yeah, I think you're going to see a lot more district finance in the future.
Well, and God, the numbers you've thrown out there for Texas and Florida dwarf Arizona, and it's really a shame that Arizona is tying its hands behind its back as it relates to public financing, because clearly when you look at the top 50 master plan communities, the majority are in Texas and Florida. And to Carl's point, that's where a lot of the demographics are heading towards. But also, Arizona's in the Sun Belt and a desirable place to live. So there isn't any reason that more of the MPCs in Arizona shouldn't be on the list. But we'll have to talk to some of our clients about that, Pam. With that, guys, I'd like to conclude this session of the Land to Lots podcast. And thank you very much for taking time out of your day to listen to Land to Lots. Thank you.
You have been listening to the Land to Lots podcast with Carter Froelich. Tune in next week for the next episode.